Welcome to Motherhood Aligned and Assigned, where we help guide mothers from symptoms to solutions.
We're Dr. Serena Coffman and Dr. Veronica Schiltz, nervous system specialists helping families discover the missing link in their wellness journey.
Join us as we translate complex health challenges into simple, actionable solutions for you and your children.
Because your family deserves to thrive,
not just survive. Hello and welcome back, and today we are going to be talking about something that we talk about quite often in our office, but I first just kind of want to open it and speak to the parents, because as parents, we've been taught that more is typically better. So more therapy, more specialists, more appointments. So you're running from speech therapy to occupational therapy, feeding therapy, behavioral therapy, maybe even layering in supplements and special diet, sensory tools, detox protocols, right? All out of deep love for your child. But here's what breaks our hearts is the fact that despite all of that effort, progress feels slow, or even worse, it's not happening at all. And you're left asking the question every parent eventually whispers at night, what are we missing? Why isn't this working? And where do we go next? So we're going to talk today about what most doctors are not explaining because they don't really know how to look for it. Your child does not need more therapies. They need the right foundation for everything else to work on top of it.
So this message is for the parents who are feeling like they're pushing a car with the parking brake on, right? They're doing all the things and you're doing everything right is what you hear, right? In the Facebook groups, that's where I see a lot of parenting advice. All of the other moms, right? You're doing everything right and yet still something's not clicking. So if you're tired of adding more interventions without the breakthroughs that you were promised, right? So there's no bang for your buck here. This conversation is for you.
So there are many times that parents come into our office and they are just feeling like they are running on fumes, right? Because there's all kinds of stuff happening. Usually the child is also not sleeping. So they're trying to fit in all of these appointments, right? They have like 4 to 6 therapy appointments a week. They're on elimination diets, we'll call it, but also like intense, like regimens for what you can eat and when you can eat and how you can eat. They're taking so many supplements. They need those weighted blankets, one of those vagal nerve stimulations. They need sensory tools. They are dealing with constant meltdowns, right? They're doing all of this from a place of love. But when we ask, has anyone ever actually evaluated your child's nervous system? The answer is almost always no. They know of that term, right? But they just didn't know that there was a way to actually take a peek into the nervous system and hear what it's saying. So nearly 1 in 6 children today has a developmental disability of some sort, and that leaves millions of families chasing symptoms without ever being shown the system that controls all of the development, right, which is the nervous system.
So let's talk a little bit more on this foundation, and let's build out an image in our head, right? So imagine trying to remodel a house, and actually I think about this a lot because Chad remodels houses and he buys houses with cracked foundations. And actually he just bought a house with a cracked foundation on both walls, and they had already started building out all of the rooms upstairs and putting the framing in all the rooms with the foundation still cracked. And he said, I'm so glad I bought it before they had gotten any further, because we'd have to tear all of that down, because we're going to completely shift the foundation of the house, which is going to shift everything above it. So picture that. Say this house has been built, right? They built the whole house on this cracked foundation with the walls like buckling in. You can paint the walls. You can buy expensive furniture and design it all nice. And then you're still going to notice, like, once you move into it and start using the house keeps shifting and settling. The walls are going to start cracking. Like, the paint job isn't going to matter because there's going to be cracks in it, right? You're like, things are going to roll down the hallway because the floor is not level, right? That's exactly what happens when we add all of these nice therapies. They're beautiful and they help us function well, but without a foundation, which is the nervous system, here is what we're talking about. Without a solid nervous system foundation that is balanced and adaptable, all of these other therapies and wonderful things to make us look pretty, well, like, that makes the house look pretty, but to make us operate smoothly, aren't going to settle in very well.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny there. I feel like I almost never talk about housing and that kind of stuff, but we actually just had like a giant thing happen nearby us where there was like $1 million neighborhood, and like a ton of families in that neighborhood were having these terrible issues because of the foundation. And it just is like, goes to show how you can pour and invest all these things into a whole neighborhood, but the whole entire, like, it was multiple foundations that were kind of shifting. And so it just kind of shows that, you know, you can add all these things to it, but without the foundation, no matter what price point we're looking at, right, for housing and also for your health, you still have to get that foundation. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of pretty stuff on top of cracks, right? So, So what a lot of people ask is, you know, how did this happen, right? I feel like that's a very common question for a parent who's going through it. It's like, okay, well, I've done all these things. Why is it not working? How does this happen? How does the foundation crack, especially so early, right? Because, I mean, sometimes we're dealing with brand new newborns who are going through that perfect storm, right? And so we call it the perfect storm because it's a layering of stressors that often begin before your child is even born. And so we're going to kind of go through the stages of stress, but it actually starts in the womb. So stress during pregnancy doesn't stay with mom. It travels through the umbilical cord, directly shaping the baby's nervous system. And if you've spent any amount of time around me, you will know that I actually find this to be a very, very good thing, because if a baby is not stressed out when mom is stressed out, there's several problems that can happen with that. One, the baby is going to be shocked by the state of environment that they're in, right? So if we have a mom who's going through a stressful situation and then we have a baby that's like, woo, let's do this thing, it's going to feel very hard for the baby to kind of adapt to where mom is at. So it's really a survival instinct. We need this for our babies so that they can know and kind of be prepared with us to handle life when they're born. And then also there's like this connection piece to it. Like, how hard is it when you are around someone who's stressed out to not connect with that person, right? Because you're just not on the same page as them. And so that's really kind of like a bonding mechanism. It's like, if mom is stressed out, baby can also be stressed out. And that's in a weird way a bonding experience. Okay. So it's not that we're like, way to go, mom, you're stressing your baby out. It's that, okay, mom, how can we take care of you so that you can innately take care of baby? Okay. So we start with prenatal stress. And then oftentimes it doesn't just stop while you're creating the baby, right? It leads into some birth stress. So even the smoothest of births can put stress on a baby's spine and nervous systems. Birth in general is a very, very traumatic event. But then we also add inductions, epidurals, forceps, extractions, vacuum extractions, C-sections, and then the stress multiplies. So we're not saying those are bad things. We're just saying we have to take into account the stress that is adding to baby. Okay, so research shows up to 90% of newborns have some sort of spinal dysfunction after birth. Okay, and I would even argue 100%, but we obviously can't say that for statistics purposes. Many, many, many people are born with this physical stress because even the most beautiful births still have some level of stress added to them, right? You're literally going from this beautiful little womb and cocoon into the world like that. It's a shift in the nervous system. It's going to happen.
And babies are also experiencing chemical stress in the womb, right? With more than we can control, right? All of that stuff travels. They get what's in our blood, right? And then, so if we have chemical stress, emotional stress, and then birth is the physical stress, they can experience all of those things before they meet the world, right? So, yeah, it's not just the birth.
Not to mention, also conception, right? Like thinking about that too.
Yeah, you can go down this rabbit hole of like how were dad's genetics reflecting stress, right? Was the sperm tired? I don't know,
like the quality and the
yeah. So all of that, you can trace it. I mean, people trace this kind of stuff for generations too, right? And it's like we don't have like the hard science on generational. We call it generational trauma, but just like what we inherit, right? There's a lot to be said for what we inherit. And it can be on mom's side or dad's side. But just to keep it simple and classic, like chemical, emotional, physical, Dr. Veronica hit those. Like we can experience all of those things before we're born.
Yeah. And then during birth, think about like that same, so we start to compound, right? Because it's like in the womb, like Dr. Serena just said, you've got the chemical stressors of the world we live in. We've got the physical stressors of, developmental and that kind of stuff. And then if mom, there's just so many different roads we can go down. But then you've got that, emotional stressor that when mom is stressed, baby's feeling it. So that's kind of what we were talking about, that like stress during pregnancy. And then the birth stress, it's like your hormone levels shift, right? Like babies also experience that giant hormonal shift. I remember when I had my second born, both my kiddos had this, but my second born had terrible baby acne. And I was like, what's going on? And the midwife was like, it happens sometimes. Like, he's just going through a hormone shift. And it just like made me realize like, oh, like my hormones aren't the only ones crashing right now, right? Like he's trying to process all of these hormones too. So yes, there is that. And then there's postnatal stress. So typically they kind of start, like I said, compounding. So now let's say you've had this experience. It was stressful for mom and baby, and you hope that you're kind of out of that. But then you start to have a baby that's not sleeping the best, a baby that has reflux, spitting up a lot, crying all the time. We traditionally call it colic, but really that just means discomfort, right? Then you've got ear infections. And then when the ear infections don't go away, you've got antibiotics, which is another chemical stressor, right? And then we've got toxins that are just in our world. And then there's so many different layers added into the cracks of the foundation. It's like a wonder that not all of it, well, I would say all of us have some sort of level of dysfunction, right? But it's a wonder that not all of us are always in these perfect storms, because it truly is something that just is sneakily creeping and adding on another crack into the foundation. And so by the time parents are starting to notice these things like delays or challenges, their nervous system is incredibly overwhelmed. And it's not just overwhelmed, it's stuck in that state of stress. I don't know about you, Dr. Serena, but I would say 70% of the patients we get are 3-year-olds, right? Because it's like that is when the social, emotional storm happens. That's when preschool is getting ready to start. It's where the meltdowns are happening. But really, this has been brewing for a long time. And I always kind of joke with patients like, what kind of patients do you typically see? And I'm like, honestly, I first see the toddler, and then I see mom, because mom's like, oh, I'm in that storm too. I just didn't, I called it anxiety, and I called it, ADHD and that kind of thing. So there is that.
Yeah. So speaking of parents, this is where a lot of parents feel like guilt. They're like, oh my gosh, did I do all of this? Like, I feel so bad that I could have, like, if I would have known, I could have prevented it. And I have parents who adopted their babies saying this, right? It's like, no. You have done nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what a lot of parents are seeing as signs of their kiddos being stuck in stress mode is when they're little, it's like the emotional dysregulation, especially as they're understanding that they have autonomy, and that also we don't always get to do what we want to do, right? They're going to struggle with being told no, because that's just a natural progression of learning and understanding. No. Then there's a step further of they have multiple meltdowns a day, and they stay in those meltdowns for a long time, and it takes a long time to recover, right? So those kiddos, the chronically sick kiddos, the ADHD, the anxiety, right? So we start treating those things, right? We start trying to do all of these therapies to solve like the ADHD and the anxiety and the chronic ear infections, right? That's functional medicine, therapy, PT, OT, those kinds of things, right? So, and we're telling parents, that's not it, not yet, right? So then they're like, well, what do I do? Because I chose all of those things first.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to try to explain is, okay, when a nervous system is already overloaded, right? It's already has a cracked foundation, and you're trying to add all these things and just function. Adding more therapies is like plugging too many devices into all of the power strips and the outlets to try to like cover up the issues with lighting and lamps and all those things, right? And so eventually, like the whole system trips, like it blows the circuit breaker, and it's like there's just more crash. Or there's just like plateau, right? So initially parents see like, okay, what was helping? And now it's not helping at all. I've just seen a plateau for a long time. Or the therapies get harder, right? Like we were doing great, and now they're actually really struggling with them more than we thought. Like we've kind of reverted. And you're getting more meltdowns, and they're getting worse sleep, and then you're seeing regressions. in those therapies, that's not saying that they're failing those. Right? They're not failing those therapies. They're overloaded. Like their capacities, you're beyond their bandwidth for their nervous system. And so let's back up. I'm going to boldly say, pause those therapies. And the problem wasn't that you weren't doing enough therapies or doing enough to help them, is that you were building on an unstable foundation, right? Mm-hmm. So let's rebuild and repair their nervous system and then send them back out into the world, right? Like, okay, go do these therapies again to integrate everything we've done if you feel like you still need it. And you're going to see them skyrocket with success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I also just want to add in terms of like the therapies, and I almost want to go back to, you know, like the reason you probably started therapies is because, you know, I'm just like thinking of like the mom journey, that the traditional mom journey of like, my baby's crying all the time and they take them into the pediatrician, right? The pediatrician says, just wait it out. We'll like see what happens. And then, so then it's like until it gets to this point where there's meltdowns, and then the pediatrician's like, well, you know, maybe we'll try OT or speech therapy or things like that. We don't really start to see therapies introduced until milestones start getting delayed. So that right there is a big sign that we were missing the mark a while ago, right? Like why was it delayed in the first place? They can't explain that. So they're like, okay, well, let's just deal with the delay and like get them back on track, instead of being like, well, why was the delay there in the first place? And so all we're trying to say is, as providers, there's not a lot out there that really focus on that foundational piece. We're often adding on top of things, or we're trying to organize what's on top of it, but we're never just trying to like take a look at it, assess it, take things off of it, and then repair the things underneath of it. And so that is kind of like, I want to transition to like what changes you can expect when you do have your foundation now more stable to be able to handle those things like therapy. Because like Dr. Serena said, I also will be like, if you're under a lot of therapies, let's take a pause respectfully, because not that you should stop those things, but literally just a pause so that we can get everything, you know, get that foundation back in order. And so the part we love sharing, because this is what we get to do every single day, is that through neurologically focused chiropractic care, we're going to first evaluate the nervous system using advanced insight scans. And so we're going to know, where is it stuck in stress? Where is the nervous system stuck in a storm of stress? And then where do we need to repair and restore the connection back into full function again? So with gentle, specific adjustments, we help the nervous system release tension and regain its ability to adapt. I've been saying this a lot lately, but as providers, not enough people are releasing and repairing because they just don't know how, right? So it's like we as chiropractors who focus on neurologically focused chiropractic care get to come in and really address the nervous system from that state that really only we can. And then that's when you're going to start seeing things like speech therapy clicking, right? You're going to see massive progress in speech therapy. OT is going to become easier, right? Because you're not spending half of the class just getting your child to pay attention, right? They're actually going to walk in feeling more confident and feeling more capable of following instructions and integrating information. Feeding is going to improve. Sleep, it will start to stabilize. You know, immune system is going to strengthen. You're not going to have to pull your kid out of therapy every week because they're dealing with another fever or another cough or another all these things, right? Behavior is going to soften. You're going to get to connect with your child again. Connection alone could help, you know, with some of the things that they're going through, right? So actually, I have a story on this, but it's not magic. It's neurology. And the foundation stabilizes, everything else finally works the way it was designed to. And so I have a story of actually a 3-year-old who's adopted, has the perfect storm, came into my office for behavior, like literally as perfect storm as it gets. And just today I was seeing mom. She came in for a scan, so she was by herself. It's also a great way to get away from the kids for a hot second. But we were talking and she said, you know what I just realized? She just asked me for a hug today for the first time. Like, I don't know that she's ever asked me for a hug. And she was like, and we had this moment, and it's not that I don't give her hugs. It's just that she's never asked and like sought connection in the middle of chaos. It was like, she almost was caught off guard by it. 'Cause she was like, they were in the middle of like, I think getting ready to leave the house, and she was putting shoes on. And then all of a sudden, you know, this 3-year-old was like nudging her on the shoulder, and she's like, yeah, what do you need? And she just like, she said it was like the softest little voice. She's like, hug please. And there was just like this moment of like the world stopped, right? Because it was like, like she's reaching out for connection right now, and that's never happened before. And so this one, you know, she is a bold and spirited little girl. So I think some things are just personality, right? But she is out of the storm and now is able to seek connection like that. And even she was like, she whispered it so quiet. She's not a quiet individual. I hear her talk a lot. But it was almost like they both had this new connection of like, I want connection right now, and I'm going to ask you for it. And then mom was like, I will absolutely give you, that connection that you're needing. And so those are the kinds of things that you get to see. And it's just really cool when you see the foundation come online, you get to build on top of that again.
Yeah, that's probably the most satisfying, gratifying, everything. And thing that I've seen in the office is as we're getting people out of operating on the gas pedal, we let off their emergency brake, right? Because they're not dragging anymore. The number one most beautiful thing I've seen is their ability to connect. That was not something I was expecting to happen when I came into chiropractic. Right? That's not one of the benefits we talk about often, right. But it's what I've seen most consistently, the most beautiful result of repairing or helping someone to repair their nervous system. Right? So, yeah. So moms and dads, if you're exhausted from running to therapy, come to our therapy instead. No, really. Let's stop chasing symptoms. And if you want to address the foundation instead of layering more stress over here, right? Let's fix the root and the foundation so that you're ready to roll into these next therapies and graduate and not need them anymore because they're integrated and their brains are connected to their bodies and to their souls, honestly, and they're thriving and adapting and doing what God designed them to do.
The end. So if any of the things that we shared with you today are resonating, maybe you're like, oh my gosh, that's my kid. Maybe you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. We would love to see you in the office. And so we've talked about this before, but just so you can kind of get an idea of what to expect, you will book an appointment with either Dr. Serena if you are in the Idaho, Boise area, or with me if you are in the central Iowa, Des Moines, Ankeny area. And you're going to get some paperwork. You're going to fill out that paperwork. We're going to go over it with you. We're in depth with your history, not just what's on the paperwork, but to kind of figure out where some of these things started. Where did it come from?
Yeah, we're going to ask about your birth.
Yeah. Okay. No matter how old you are. We ask about your child's birth, but we'll also ask you about your birth. And it was really, I actually asked mom that the other day. How was your birth? Do you know anything about your birth? And she was like, oh, super traumatic. My child was. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to talk about that too. But your birth, how does your mom, I always like to say, if you had a hard birth, your mom will never let you forget it. She probably still talks about it to this day, right? Yep. So you will know. So we talk all the way back into, as far back as it goes, because we want to know how soon that stress started and how often it's been happening over the lifetime. And then we will do a series of insight scans so that we can know exactly what to go on, right? That is, I think, the one thing that we pride ourselves in is being able to objectively not only see what's going on neurologically, but then track it. And then you're going to get a care plan so that we know exactly what you need to do moving forward and all that good stuff. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and head to the show notes. We have got links for either I or Dr. Serena's office. And because we are part of the pediatric experience, we're certified through that program. We also have a directory down there that you can check out if you are not in Iowa or Idaho or another I state. If you are somewhere else in the world, that is great too. We would love to connect you with a PX doc who is doing that extra work to learn about insight scans and just this whole process. And so you can check out that link below.
I'll pray us out.
Okay.
Dear Lord, thank you for giving the researchers and chiropractors that have gone before us the knowledge and the wisdom to see these patterns and how we're collecting this stress in our broken world. Thank you, Lord, for giving us the skill set and your healing hands so that we can serve our communities and unwind the stress and be, hopefully, prayerfully, a piece of heaven down on earth for our communities. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on Motherhood Aligned and Assigned.
We hope today's episode helped you connect the dots in your family's health journey.
Remember, this is where nervous system health meets motherhood wisdom.
Until next time, we're Dr. Veronica Schiltz
and Dr. Serena Coffman, supporting you as you nurture your family's well-being.
Because when you're aligned, everyone thrives.